Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing an updated annotation video. I get a lot of questions on things like TikTok and stuff about how and why I annotate, and a lot of people in my real life also ask me why I'm sticking things in my book. I think one of my favourite interactions with people who don't understand or know what annotating really is was I was actually at the book signing for Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati, and her mum saw me annotating the book and came over and was like, "What are you doing?" And I showed her all of my annotations, and she took a picture to show Costanza, and she was just obsessed, and it was just one of the cutest bookish moments I've ever had. And it's kind of just, I just remembered that earlier and thought I'm gonna do an updated annotation video because I've not spoken about my annotating process in quite a while, and if there's one thing that I like to talk about is being extra when it comes to reading and writing. So today we're going to be talking about my updated annotation process. One thing I do think it's important to point out is that the way I annotate books differs massively depending on whether I'm reading them for a review, if I'm reading them just for fun, or if I'm reading them for uni, because the reason that I'm annotating is completely different for each of those three scenarios. So we're going to go through each and talk about the differences and also how I annotate for those different situations. So the first one I'll talk about is when I'm just reading books for fun. So one of my most favourite books ever, but one like my top books of last year, was The Girl and the Goddess by Nikita Gill. This is a novel in verse, so it's poetry but as an entire novel. And for this book, as you can see, there are very few tabs in here, so I literally just tabbed my favourite moments. Like, I didn't go into massive detail on what I was tabbing, I didn't have themes that I was looking for, I just tabbed my most favourite moments, the moments that made me cry, the moments that made me laugh, just the moments I wanted to remember the most. And that's why there's much fewer tabs in this book compared to something like Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, which has a lot of tabs in, and this I would say is the way that I tab books most often. Like, this is my most used tabbing system. So usually I will pick a colour from my tabs and each colour will be representing a theme. So for this one, I don't remember exactly which tabs were which, but I know I did like characters, I did plot, I did setting, magic system, development, and then I think there's probably like one more, but I don't remember which it was. I do have the notes somewhere, just not to hand. I will normally write down either in a notebook or like on my notes app on my phone what each colour means. I know that a lot of people have a strict colour coding system, so no matter what book they're reading, each colour will always stay the same. But for me, each book is different. The themes that are allocated to each colour are completely different for each book that I read. So that, I guess, is kind of something that I do a little bit differently to most people, I've found, at least from watching other people's annotation videos. But yes, so each colour does mean something. It just depends which book it is that I'm reading and which themes that I'm concentrating on. But when it comes to books that I'm just reading for fun, I don't tab every book I read, and honestly I can't really give you the thing that makes me want to tab a book. I think it just depends on a whole bunch of factors. Fantasies, I'm more inclined to tab than something like a contemporary, just because there's a lot more going on in terms of things like world building and magic systems, characters and different names and things that I might want to remember. So I'm more likely to tab a fantasy than I am any other genre, I guess, or like a sci-fi or something. But it just depends, honestly. So that was a little bit about how I annotate, but in terms of what I use to annotate, I pretty much always use the same items. So the first thing is the sticky tabs that I've already mentioned. I have a couple of different brands, so I'm pretty sure they all came from Amazon. So these ones are like rectangles, these ones have little pointy bits on, and then I also have these ones which are kind of more aesthetic, I guess, like they're not rainbow, they're more like muted pastel colours. I don't really have a preference, I mostly gravitate towards these ones just because there are set different colours that I can use for different themes. But if I'm annotating in the way that I showed you in the first example, where it's just my favourite moments, I'm more likely to use these tabs that don't have a set, different colours, because there's no colour coordination going on. I'm just tabbing random moments, so I'm more likely to use these ones and kind of match them to the colour of the book, like the cover and stuff, and make it look pretty, which is kind of extra, and I normally go for the rainbow ones just because I can colour coordinate, but I do use these on occasion and they are really pretty. So An example of when I've done that is something like Saint by Adrienne Young. One of my favourite books ever, one of my favourite authors ever, in fact my favourite author, and I used all blue tabs for Saint because the cover is blue. I knew that I was just going to be tabbing everything and anything, and if I get another copy at some point I might go through and colour coordinate my annotations, but for this one I just wanted to read it and I didn't want to be worrying about, you know, coming out of the story to find the right colour tab. I just wanted to tab things and carry on, so I just used blue ones that match the cover, and that's the other way that I annotate, I guess. So another example of a book that I matched the tabs to the cover would be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I had these pink and blue and like orange pastel toned ones, and for this one is another example of a book that I knew I was just going to fly through and devour, and I didn't want to keep distracting myself by finding the right colour tabs. I just used a pack that was colours that matched the cover and just used whichever ones I could grab at, you know, any given moment. And honestly, I don't really mind. I think it looks really pretty, and I wasn't looking for specific themes within this one. I just wanted to tab everything that I enjoyed or that I thought was important. So that's my other annotating system, I guess. It's a lot more chaotic, but it does look pretty, so it's fine. So another example of a book that I colour coordinated would be The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read this earlier this year and I did colour coordinate, so I think I did, again, like setting slash world building, big important moments. Characters had their own colour tabs, emotional moments, and also things that related to original myths as well I tabbed. So yes, that was how I tabbed The Song of Achilles, and there are definite, you know, colour coordination going on in this one compared to the last example. So occasionally I will highlight my books. It isn't something that I do very often just because it takes time and I'm lazy, and also I'm very fussy with my books, so I find it quite risky underlining and highlighting my books, but occasionally I do it, especially if I'm reading books for uni. The highlighters I like the most are the Bic highlighters. These are like pastel colours. I have tried the erasable ones, the friction erasable highlighters, which are also good, but they don't tend to erase very well on like on book paper. They're okay on something like an A4 sheet or something like that, but when you're actually highlighting in a book they don't erase very well, so I don't tend to use them. But these ones are my favourite. These ones are my favourite. They're just really nice colours, they're really smooth, they glide on the page really nicely, and I just like these highlighters. What else can I say? But yes, I would highly recommend these if you want to highlight in your books. They have a very slim nib, so they're just very neat and tidy in book pages. Okay, and in terms of books that I read for uni and for research, I go very over the top. This is my copy of the Odyssey. This is the Emily Wilson translation, which, as you can see, is, yeah, I don't even know how to explain to you my thought process with this one because it was chaos. But I did colour coordinate, so each tab has its own thing. I can't remember exactly what they are off the top of my head, it's all written down somewhere, but each colour had a very specific meaning, and I think I got through like 5 or 6 packs of sticky tabs for this because, I mean, it's quite long. There are some pages that have 3 or 4 tabs on a single page. There's a lot of annotations going on in this one. It was for uni, it was for research, so I had to go very in depth. And then again, another example of something that I read for uni would be Euripides Medea and Other Plays. So again, not as, you know, crazy with the tabbing in this one, but this is an example of something that I highlighted, and this one was already really beaten up when I got it. Like, it's not a very aesthetically pleasing copy in the sense that the pages are really yellow and the spine is cracked, so I didn't feel quite so bad highlighting in this one. But I was talking about this play in, well, Medea, in a lot of detail in one of my essays, so I had to really pick out specific lines, and that's why I decided to highlight in this one. But again, the sticky tabs are colour coordinated, so they all mean something specific, a theme that I was looking for within my research, so that's how I tab that one. But I'd say in terms of uni and research, this is probably more likely how I would tab something in that situation. It's going to be more like this, very detailed, very over the top in a lot of people's opinions, and that's fine, I don't care. So yeah, that is pretty much how I annotate books nowadays. I didn't always tend to colour coordinate when I was annotating a few years ago and when I made my last videos, but 9 times out of 10 when I read a book now and annotate it, I will colour coordinate the tabs for different themes that I'm looking at. It's more so if I'm reading a book that I think I'm more likely to reread, that I will just use random colour tabs or those aesthetic ones that match the covers. But yeah. I hope you guys found this interesting or useful. I get, as I said, a lot of questions about my annotating system and why and how I annotate, so I hope that's kind of given you guys any answers to the questions you had. But yeah, if you annotate your books, let me know in the comments how you annotate yours. I'm really curious to know if my annotation system is different or similar to everybody else's, so let me know in the comments. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to see future videos from me, and you will see me in the next one. Bye guys.